Hey everybody, welcome back to PCW Rewind. I'm your host, CQ. This is where we get to take a look back at some of my all-time favorite interviews and celebrity guest appearances from my live show, Pop Culture Warrior. For those of you guys that are new here, you can catch the live show every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on pretty much every social media platform. All you got to do is search for WTF Nation Radio. And if you are new, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss when we share more awesome new celebrity guest interviews every week. In this episode, I sat down with one of the incredibly talented co-creators of the hit TV show How I Met Your Mother, Carter Bays. We talked all about his early days in writing, starting out in MTV and The Late Show with David Letterman, which included a great story about how they created a fake boy band called Fresh Step. That was a hoot. Of course, we talked about the breaking news of the week, which was that a sequel series of How I Met Your Mother was announced called, obviously, How I Met Your Father, and he told us all about how that came to be. Speaking of How I Met Your Mother, we covered that one in great detail. I tried to get to the bottom of one of the many unanswered questions of the show, like, did Marshall actually get mugged by a monkey? We also covered on how having loosely based Ted on his own experiences, what was kind of the cringiest part of looking back at Ted / himself at that time in his life. There's the unbelievably true story of the character, Carl the bartender, how he came to be. And of course, we couldn't not mention the much contested ending to the series. We also got to talk about his passion for Star Wars, some of the things that he hid in the background of the show that were just for him, and all about his upcoming book. It really was a fantastic conversation that I know you'll enjoy watching. So without further ado, please enjoy the Pop Culture Warrior interview of Carter Bays. My guest tonight is a television showrunner, writer, and producer. He's best known as co-creator, writer, and executive producer of the mega hit CBS sitcom How I Met Your Mother, a show which has been, it's received 10 Emmy wins, a whopping 62 award nominations, including Best Original Song for Nothing Suits Me Like a Suit. And I mentioned that because he's also co-founded the band The Solids, who you just heard perform the theme song to How I Met Your Mother called Hey Beautiful. In the summer of 1996, he was an intern in the development department of MTV. He graduated from Wesleyan in 97. He and his writing partner, Craig Thomas, began writing for The Late Show with Dave Letterman. He later went on to write for American Dad, Quintuplets, Oliver Bean. It was in 2005 that he got the big break when he filmed and aired the pilot episode for How I Met Your Mother, and the rest, as they say, is history. Please, everyone, give a big warm welcome to writer-producer Carter Bays. Hi.
Hi, CQ. How are you?
How you doing, man? Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh my God, it's a pleasure. It's such a pleasure. I love the room. I love the shield. I love the gauntlet. I love the hammer. The whole thing.
Yeah. You know, it's all right. It's all right. I'm sure you got a lovely collection too.
It's just out of frame.
Man, there's so much to cover. I don't want to do you an injustice by not, touching on everything, but we're going to do our best. Obviously, we were just chatting. The first question I always like to ask, because this is primarily, a veteran themed show and there's a lot of military and veterans watching, I always like to ask, what is a guest's military connection? Did they serve themselves? Did they have family, friends, siblings, or just big supporter? Love to hear.
Sure. I grew up. There's a lot of members of my family that were in the service. I wouldn't call us a military family, so to speak. But my grandfather was on a destroyer in the Pacific in World War II. I have some uncles who were in the Air Force and the Navy, and my wife's father was my father-in-law was in the Army for many years. Had a long career. So it really I actually trace it back to my first job in TV writing for David Letterman, because David Letterman, something that I really appreciated and learned in that job was his appreciation for people in military service. Like we did a series of shows from Bosnia, from a base in Bosnia. We would have like every year when for Fleet Week we would have like an audience full of sailors and I just really, that was kind of like my indoctrination into this idea that like part of your responsibility as a member of the comedy community is to reach out. It's sort of this legacy that goes back to Bob Hope.
Right.
And so I was always impressed by that, with as far as like the way Letterman made a priority out of that. And then, then we actually went to war, and that I think, especially, I as a civilian, like, you look for ways that you can thank the people that have the courage to do the thing that you don't do, that have the courage to put on a uniform and defend this country. And I looked at my my meager set of skills, it's just something I really appreciate. And I wouldn't say I have a specific person or like a specific connection to the military, but it's something that's important to me.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, you mentioned quite a bit of a connection, and I'm curious too, being a guy who obviously loves New York City, right? Because you've written about it, you made a show about it. I mean, that there is that connection too, right? That, I mean, I know I was born and raised in New York, and so I know when 9/11 happened, it felt personal. It was a personal attack.
Yeah,
so
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was there, and I was working at Letterman, and there was sort of, everybody on that day kind of internalized it and looked at their own life, and even just setting aside like the bigger meanings of it, just like the fear of that day, like working at the Ed Sullivan Theater, it was kind of like, it felt like it was a potential target, it was and then 30 Rock got targeted, but there was all that stuff with like the anthrax scare and stuff. It hit home. I mean, that day, I mean, I still, you don't forget a day like that. And you don't, I feel like I don't even want to go into it too deeply, but like, that changed it for everybody.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So that's actually a perfect segue, because before we dive into the How I Met Your Mother, because that's as everybody wants to talk about, I'm sure. But there's more to you than that. And so I was curious, what was it like, coming out of Wesleyan, getting that opportunity to write for Letterman, to write on American Dad, to do that? What did that mean to you as far as you getting into the business?
I mean, it was a tremendous opportunity, and I there's no question that I'm just a really, really lucky guy to have had that opportunity. Like I mean, Craig and I were, I think we like a week earlier or a week later, it wouldn't have worked. Like I think we arrived at a time when two writers had left Letterman and I think there was a feeling of like, maybe the ratings were starting to slip among like 18 to 35-year-olds. I mean, they think that way, and they think like, okay, well, we need two young writers to come in, and like, there was me and Craig. We just happened to be right place, right time. And it was amazing. It was an amazing 4.5 years that we spent there. I call it my comedy grad school, because I was going to Wesleyan and I was an English major, and so writing was something really important to me, and I had learned how to like write short stories and things like that, but comedy was something that I didn't. I think everyone who writes comedy, and this could segue to my work with ASAP, because I think it's really important. Like, the number one thing for anyone writing comedy, anyone who wants to get into that, is to feel what it feels like for one of your jokes to bomb, and internalize that feeling, and hate that feeling so much that you never want to feel it again. And that you just need to do that over and over again. And Letterman gave me a chance to. Gave me this stage. I'm not a performer. I'm not a stand-up, and I'm not like, I don't think I'm naturally funny as a guy, but like, I think I'm a pretty good writer. And so it gave me an opportunity to like, 5 shows a week. And no matter how hard you bomb or how great you do, you have to show up the next day with all new material. And you can't, I remember when we were first applying for the job, we worked so hard writing, you have to write these, no, I'm sorry. When we first applied for, the first job we applied for was Conan O'Brien. We loved Conan O'Brien, and Craig and I spent like a whole summer just getting together material and like gathering, like honing our stuff and like fiddling with every wording of every joke and just polishing it like this little gem. And we were lucky enough to get an agent at this time, and then we sent it to our agent, and he was like, "This is great, Conan O'Brien. Everyone loves that job. No one's going to quit. There's never going to be a job available at Conan O'Brien. But 2 guys just left Letterman. You have 48 hours to write a whole new packet of material for Letterman, which means write 3 top 10 lists." Write like some sketch ideas, write some monologue jokes. I think maybe we had to do also, but I remember at the time this feeling of like 48 hours. No, we can't. That's
right.
That we can't. We spent all summer on this other thing. We can't do this in 48 hours. Not realizing like when you get the job, you get 4 hours to do that. It's a fast paced job, and you show up, at 10 a.m. and you open the newspaper, because this is before anyone had the internet on their computers. That's how old I am. And we, you'd open up the Post. The Post was always the best, because the Post was like, it's the news stories that you're going to make jokes about are in the Post. Like the New York Times has like, the Dow dipped a little bit and and all that stuff is boring. But the Post is always like, a kid gets stuck in a crane machine, and like there's always like funny stories like that. And so like we would use that as sort of like the that was always kind of our like sort of the comedy, the grist for the mill. And we would just you'd look at the stories that day, and you had to like come up with jokes about the news like every day. And I did that for 4.5 years, and it really was. It taught me a lot about just how to structure jokes and how to what things get laughs and what things don't. Like it's such an ineffable thing, and it remains a mystery to anyone who does comedy. Even you could be 30 years into your career, and it's still a mystery what's going to get a laugh and what isn't. But Letterman was an amazing teacher for that. Like he was a guy who like didn't he I think we arrived at a time when it was like later in his career, and he had sort of, I think, spent many years, being the guy in the room with the writers. And I think he was just in managing himself for the pace of doing 5 shows
right
a week. He was not as accessible to the writers. He wasn't around. So a lot of it was you'd get your chance to pitch to him, and you'd have like 2 minutes to pitch the stuff you've been working on for all day long. And he just had a great, a very like just no nonsense way of in a really pithy way shooting down the ideas that weren't going to work. And like he was just famous for just saying no. Like you'd pitch something and he would say no. He would say like, and you'd be so excited, you'd be trying to sell it. He'd just go no. And then you're on to the next thing. And it taught me a lot about being discriminating about like what stuff you do, and how like at that point especially he had spent 30 years developing this voice as a comedian, and he really knew what that voice was, and he just really had it on lock, like what worked on his show and what didn't. And he also like he also would often rewrite things that we would Craig and I for like 4 years for the last 4 years of the show, we were on the mailbag. So we did like the people would write in letters to Dave, say, "Hey Dave, how do you fix a washer dryer?" And he would do some funny answer showing the answer to that. Right. And Craig and I would write those skits or sketches, I guess you're not supposed to call them skits, but in hindsight they were skits. He would we would write these scripts and leave them for him, because he came in earlier than everyone else. He came in at like 4 a.m. to like skip traffic, and we would stay up all night Wednesday night, the night before we would shoot the mailbag, and we'd hand off the scripts at like 2 a.m. to the production, the producer, and we'd come in the next morning having gotten no sleep and find our scripts, and sometimes, if he didn't like something, he would just cross it off, and that was like his way of saying no to a script. But sometimes he would reword things and he would rewrite things, and just like it was like, it's amazing. It would be like like, I don't know, like how it must feel like passing to LeBron, and then he takes it. That's how it felt, and it was like, right. Oh, I just set you up to do something superhuman and create something with no, to like write the setup for the best comedian of his generation. Like that was a really cool thing, and I learned a lot. So I'm rambling about Letterman.
No, not at all. I find it fascinating. I'm curious. Is there any particular like one bit, one line, one joke that you fondly remember? Like, oh, that was me. That was all me. That's mine.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. There's oh man, now I'm like, it's funny because I the ones that I loved actually, and this I feel like there's something to this, that like the ones that I really love and remember are the ones that we worked on as a group. Like there's like a few, like Craig and I and these two other guys, Rodney Rothman and David Jabberbaum, who have both gone on to have incredible careers. Rodney just won an Oscar a couple years ago, and like but the four of us, we had it was around the time of the Backstreet Boys had just gotten big, and NSYNC, and like all the boy bands were like a big thing. And I don't remember whose idea it was, but like we just had this idea that what if we do, because and every now and then, like on Letterman, like we would have to, like the music people would book someone like that, and it'd be someone that like the kids go crazy for, and like Dave's like, oh, and like Boys Forever is here also, and like there'd be these screams in the crowd, and everyone's like, who are these people? But like the kids love them, and so like Dave had to do it, and like it was just always funny because Dave obviously didn't know who they were and didn't really care,
right?
But so we thought it would be funny if like, what if we did a something that sort of like makes fun of the fact that like there's these bands that everyone that are very popular and people love, but you couldn't pick them out of a lineup. You'd be like, who is this? Like, okay, I guess they're famous. So we created a boy band, like whole cloth. We like got like, and this was like a month-long project. We put a lot of work into this. We called them Fresh Step, which was the name of cat litter.
Yeah, kitty litter. Yeah.
Kitty litter. So that was kind of our way of like signaling that it's a joke without actually saying it. But they were like, but for them, like they were fresh, and they and they were like really good dancers. So that was the step part of it. And we cast 5 guys. We got these incredible, each one of them, like I think most of them were Broadway guys who just incredible singers and dancers. And one of them was Matthew Morrison, who was on Glee, who was the main guy on Glee, and he was kind of the lead singer of the group, and he was fantastic. And so we cast them, and we hired, I think it was like Britney Spears's choreographer or something like that. Like, and we like got these like crazy costumes for them. And at a certain point, it stopped being a skit about a boy band, and it was actually like, oh, we're creating a boy band. Like there was like at a certain point there was no like daylight between what we were doing and what Lou Pearlman was doing at the time. And so like, and we wrote this song, like Craig and I and Rodney and DJ David Jabberbaum, and DJ is like a Broadway lyricist who's like he's had shows on Broadway, and he's so we just got together and like came up with this song, and Paul Schaefer wrote the music for it. And it was You Gotta Be Fresh to Fresh with the Fresh Step was the I can't remember if that was the name of the song, or I think it was like Gotta Be Fresh was the name of it. And and Paul Schaefer wrote this total like Backstreet Boys sound-alike song to go with it. And then, so finally the night came, and we never let on that it was a joke. We never said like, oh, what you're seeing isn't real. We just did a thing. We just like, at the top of the show, it was like, you know, on tonight's show, you know, Alan Coulter was like, you know, Sylvester Stallone, Tom Cruise, and Fresh Step, musical guest, Fresh Step. And then, and every time Dave mentioned Fresh Step, we had the sound effects people just play sound effects of girls screaming. So Dave would be like, so we got a great show coming up. Fresh Step is here. And like people in the audience were like looking at each other like I think all the people in the balcony were like, oh, that must be the people down below. And the people down below were like, that must be the people in the balcony. But the audience was really confused. But like they just kept being these huge cheers. And then they came out and they did this show, and people bought it. We never let on that it was and then we just went into this whole, we like really went down the rabbit hole where we like did another performance. They did like their Tender Ballad. And we said that it was from a song from the soundtrack of some movie, and we made up the movie, and we ultimately we got them booked on TRL with Carson Daly, and they actually went on TRL, and Carson Daly, God bless him, was like played along like beautifully, and like just like acted as though these guys were like, yeah, these guys are great. And we like made a website for them, and the at one point in the show, like, and this is like the beginning of websites. This is when like nobody had like websites were just like starting to become a thing, and we had them hold up a sign that said www.freshstep.com, and we had like on the website we had their pictures, and we had like an email address, and we got all these emails from people like girls who were like, oh my God, you're so cute, I love it, when do I get your album, and da-da-da. And like there was a moment where it was like, it's past parody, and now it's like we've just created this thing, and like, yeah, I'm sure there was a moment there where we kind of hit this like this Rubicon where it was like we could just keep doing this and maybe make millions of dollars. I don't know.
You've crossed over. You've gone out of comedy into like the world of music producing.
Yeah. Oh God, it was amazing. But anyway, so that was the one that the probably the most memorable thing that has always stuck with me.
To me, that's punked before punked was a thing, that you joked everyone into believing this.
It was really cool. It was very it was a fun thing to be a part of, and like, you know, this is why Dave, I think, stayed so good as long as he did, because he, like, I think it was like on one hand it was sort of like a continuation of like the kind of comedy like Andy Kaufman would do, and like, you know, Dave was certainly a big part of Andy Kaufman, you know, and his whole mystique. But also I think Dave, like, I think he like didn't fully get it, but like gave us on that one he like gave us the free reign to like just try something just really insane, and it was really fun.
Yeah, and I feel like the idea, as you're talking about it, I can almost see an episode of How I Met Your Mother forming, like, because it's this long running gag, right? It's musical in nature. There's definitely some humor to it. So I'm like starting to see the building blocks of what eventually led.
Yeah, we like, and like, you know, I think it was certainly a forerunner to Robin Sparkles when we ended up doing that. It was definitely like we were old hats at writing cheesy pop songs. So.
Yeah, perfect. Yes, and guys, if you have questions for Carter, please put them in the chats. I see them. I will get to them. But I'm being selfish and asking my questions first. So it's great that you're segueing off my notes perfectly, because you mentioned the musical stuff. You co-founded the Solids with Craig and the rest of the band. You know, it's so, I don't want to say it's strange to me, but it's rare that you see someone who's, you know, maybe passionate about writing, who then also wants to get on stage and perform as part of a rock band. What drew you to the music?
Yeah, that's something that always, actually, music was how Craig and I began as creative partners. We were in a band in college before the Solids. We started our junior year. And this is like Craig and I kind of knew each other. We had taken like English, like creative writing classes together. We were both like really into that stuff. But we're only sort of like tangentially friends. And then Craig was like the most amazing drummer on campus. He was like, he was like, man, when you're a drummer at like a hippie school like Wesleyan, like you just like, you are intimate. Like every like wanky band like of like 6 guys with guitars who want to like play like, you know, do like Fish covers, like you're just sought out by everybody. But we got him, and we like Craig and I together started this band called it was called the Testostertones, which is I'm like, oh man, kids out there listening, if you're starting a college band, make sure it's a name that you are going to be comfortable saying 30 years later, because like I wish it was a different name, but that's what it was called, the Testostertones. And we were a 9-piece rhythm and blues band, and we only played like classic soul music from like Stax Records, like Wilson Pickett. We did some James Brown. We did some Otis Redding. We all wore suits, and it was and that was sort of where our partnership began. And I was the singer, and Craig was the drummer, and then we started. Then we became friends through the band, and then that following summer was when we did the internship at MTV, which we both applied for separately and didn't know. Neither of us knew the other was applying until like we both went down the same day to interview for it, and luckily we both got it. And that summer, we spent most of the summer like hanging out at Craig's mom's house in Long Island in her basement, just messing around with his drum set and my guitar and like recording stuff. And like I had like a really crappy bass guitar, and like we had a little Tascam 4-track, and we would just make all these songs and like record stuff, and just it was just this very fertile moment, and we just loved making music. And because of that, making music, then we sort of discovered like, okay, we need a job, and like writing felt like the most fun career you could have. And so writing has always been the thing we've done together, but music has always been a part of everything we've done. And we've always like, it's just the thing we love to do. And we did it on Letterman, obviously, and we did it on How I Met Your Mother a bunch of times. We did the theme song for How I Met Your Mother. Yep. And got nominated for an Emmy for Nothing Suits Me Like a Suit. And sort of the culmination of that is what we're working on right now, which is we have developed a movie musical that we're I think I can't tell if I can say hoping or we're going to. We're very close to being able to say we're going to shoot it this fall. And it's got 12 original songs that we wrote, and we're very excited about it.
Do we have a name for it yet?
Yeah, the movie's called Molly and the Moon. I can tell you all about it. I don't know if I'm in the right spot. Or can we segue to Molly and the Moon, or do we? I mean,
absolutely. You brought it up. I'm curious.
It's something we're tremendously excited about because we've been working on it for a long time, and it's inspired by Craig's the true story of when Craig's son was born, because Craig's son has a genetic condition called Jacobson syndrome, which is very rare. And it presents itself in a lot of different ways. And but when Craig and his wife went to the hospital to have the baby, they didn't know this. They hadn't gotten they were young enough that they didn't do any DNA testing. So it was a surprise to them. They went expecting to have the simple version of having a baby, and it turned into a 5-week ordeal. Their son immediately went into the NICU. He had severe heart problems and ended up needing open heart surgery as a little baby. Wow. And they had to fly in like the best surgeon in the world to do it, and it was really it was just about as harrowing as you could expect. It was really, really difficult. And in the course of that, they found out that their son had this thing, Jacobson syndrome. And just to right away say the happy ending, which is that his son just turned 14. He's doing great. He's a wonderful kid, and he's like a big musician. I keep hearing about Craig, and he and Craig like jam together, which sounds really cool. Yeah, it was 5 weeks for them, and they, when you're a writer, you sort of when you look at your own life and like look at the things that you want to write about, you kind of look for happy endings, and like what are the great happy endings of your life, and like that was like the day that Craig and Rebecca went home from the hospital was like the happiest ending any of us had ever known, and it was the kind of thing where it was so harrowing for them and so difficult and so challenging, and I think they'd be fine with me saying that like they gained a wisdom from that experience that I admire to this day, and like they and I think it took a long time for Craig to even, this was happening, by the way, season 3 of How I Met Your Mother. So we're trying to write a comedy show, and like, for the most part, Craig was, on leave and just focusing on his new family. But, it was eventually he had to come back to work, and it's like, okay, be funny.
Yeah.
You just went through this, like the worst experience of your life. Now be funny. So it took us having to finish How I Met Your Mother and sort of put down the pen in that world to be able to even start thinking about writing this as a story. And I'm so impressed with Craig that he like had the courage to like actually want to start writing about it, and just to I'm so excited about this. We worked on the song and the screenplay together. We were going to direct it together, but Craig is going to, Craig's going to be the sole director on it. And I'm really excited about it. It's like, I think it's a thing that he and I are both, one of the things we're most proud of in our career. And I think it's, I can't wait for people to see it.
No, that's incredible. And I did my due diligence. I did see that you were working on this. And is it true that Kristen Bell is attached to be part of it?
We tentatively, yes. I'm going to say yes. I mean, everything's tentative. This is the thing. Like, it's my first movie, so like, it's you find out like it's until the cameras are rolling,
right? You
don't really know, and like even sometimes after the cameras are rolling, you don't really know. But like, but yes, Kristen Bell and Jonathan Groff, Christoph and Anna. Is that right? It's Chris, right? Yeah. Anna. Who like, but also Kristen Bell from Veronica Mars and The Good Place, who like we've huge fans of forever, and Jonathan Groff from Mindhunter, which like God, that show just knocked me on my ass basically. Like that was like he's terrific. They're both tremendous talents, and we're excited. I'm excited for. We shoot it in the fall, but we're gonna start recording the music over the summer, I think, and I'm excited to, Craig and I made these demos of these songs where it's us singing and like me doing my best like girl voice and stuff, but like I'm really excited to hear them actually sing it because they're incredible singers.
Absolutely, yeah. Kristen, a lot of people don't realize that she's such an incredible singer, so that's awesome. And then obviously another. I swear, guys, we're gonna get to How I Met Your Mother. That's the next thing we're gonna talk about. But
we get an hour at least.
We got.
Give my kids a bath. Come on.
No, but obviously the big breaking news and something that a lot of How I Met Your Mother fans have been clamoring for, holding out hope for. We just got word that How I Met Your Father has been picked up a straight to series order with Hulu. Yes. 10 episodes starring Hilary Duff. I mean,
that was that fell out of the sky. Like we had closed the book on that, and we're not even thinking about it. Like the backstory here is that Isaac and Elizabeth, who are incredible writers, they a few years ago we somehow, I can't even remember how we got connected with them, but they were two writers for they'd written on a few sitcoms, and they were they had just done season 1 of This Is Us, and they were writers on This Is Us. Right. And they wrote this. They came and pitched this idea for How I Met Your Father. And Craig and I, like, our sort of guideline for like letting someone take a swing at this, like we always wanted someone to take a swing at this, and we specifically wanted it to be like, it just felt like we like just wrung every bit of juice out of ourselves from our own single lives, and we're both married now, and you know that you know our lives are over basically, or that part of our lives are over.
Right.
It's funny, like it's like I remember like spending some time at talking to someone from the Explorers Club in New York, and they had a whole thing about how, like, you know, you think that like the guys at the Explorers Club, they sit around, they swap stories, and how they're excited to have stories like, oh, there was this time, that time. And the truth is, like, real explorers, they go on these things, and the thing that you don't want is a story. If you have a story, it means something went wrong. There was a terrible moment, and you don't. And I'm sure our military listeners can relate to that too. You don't want a story. You just want it to be a normal day. And like that's and I say this all in like that's the nice thing about being married. I think like being married, but like for me, being married to my wife, I just love her, and we're just like, there's no stories anymore. So in a good way, there's no stories anymore. So we really wanted 2 young people to pick up the reins and come in and do someone else's version of this. Like take these ingredients, which is really the only ingredients are, you know, we wanted it to be How I Met Your Father, so it's different. So right. So it's a woman down the road at some point telling her child the story of how she met that child's father. And that's like that. It's like an improv game. It's like that's what you have to work with and go.
Yeah.
And they took that and pitched something so fun and fresh and with surprises, but also with like really likable, exciting characters, and they reminded us of us. They reminded, like, they're I don't know how old these guys are, but they're younger than me and Craig, and they had such like an enthusiasm for this kind of story, and we just kind of fell in love with them and fell in love with their story, with their pitch, and they wrote it up as a script, and we thought the script was great. It was full of great jokes, and then the worst thing that could have happened, which was This Is Us became a big hit, and their careers went crazy and bonanza, and they became the showrunners of This Is Us, and like then for the last few years for me, it's just been like, as a fan of This Is Us, I've been like every week I watch it, I'm like, that was great. Isaac and Elizabeth, they're great. This is terrific, and we had just given up on it, and then like earlier this spring, out of the blue, we get a phone call from Isaac Apteker, and he tells us this crazy story that he was that This Is Us is, you know, this was just announced that they're going into their last season, and Isaac and Elizabeth were being asked like what they're going to work on next, and they've been taking some general meetings and stuff, and they talked to Hilary Duff. Hilary Duff was like looking for her next thing, and apparently, I'm telling this whole story. I don't know if this is all like this is all for public consumption, but this is how the sausage is made, guys. Yeah. It happens quickly, but they mentioned to Hilary that like, oh, you know, something that we worked on a while ago that never went anywhere was this How I Met Your Father script, and she asked to see it, and they sent it to her, and she said, I love it. And now we're making a show, and like that was, it was like 1 week, you know, it's a Thursday, and How I Met Your Father is just a pipe dream and a distant memory, and then by the next Thursday, it's like it's happening. It's going to be on Hulu. It's, you know, you're making this show, and we're so excited for them, and I'm excited to. The thing that excites me the most is. I don't know if I'm allowed to share, but like we're bringing back some people that from behind the scenes that we're excited to have be a part of this new version of it, and so we know they'll be in good hands. And Craig and I are we get to like be the Obi-Wan Kenobis to their Luke Skywalkers.
You get to dip your toe in just enough, relive the glory days.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm just excited. I'm excited to get back in a writer's room. I mean, I really, I've been, this, after How I Met Your Mother ended, I moved to New York with my wife because we wanted to be on the East Coast. We love New York. And we lived there for 6 years and had a great time, made some good friends and did all the fun New York stuff. Like my son and I did a road trip to Cooperstown and all this stuff. And it was really, it's wonderful memories. But for a number of reasons, Denise's family is here on the West Coast. And but also just I missed making TV. Like I the thing that I loved the most. I spent I think 17 years in comedy rooms and in writers' rooms, and then stopped cold turkey for 6 years. And I really miss it. I'm excited to like get back into it and just be the old guy in the room instead of the young guy in the room. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity.
Yeah, because and I think with this new show, it's like you said, young, hip, fresh, whatever you want to call it. But also, since How I Met Your Mother first aired, I mean, technology has changed. Things are so different, and how we interact with each other is so different. Yeah. So,
well, that's the thing. Like that right there is why we definitely felt like someone else. Like it's not going to be Craig and Carter present How I Met Your Father. Like it has to be someone who, like I got married in 2010, 2009. I should know that. I should know that number. It was between 2010 and 2011. It was New Year's Eve. But it was before the apps came along. Before like people were like Tinder and like whatever the new ones. I don't even know what the new ones are. But like I missed that whole genre of dating like completely. And so like I know, but I know enough about the world that like anyone who does this show is going to have to address that because that's like the way we date has changed, and now that there's a pandemic, I don't even know how people do it like with a national quarantine going on.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it on the one episode too, where it was like the old, what was it? You could Google everything now, and like the bar arguments.
Mystery versus history, or was that what's called Mystery versus History?
So
like you could find out someme's history as it was. So that was starting. It was beginning. Yeah. That whole thing. And there's the thing with like, I was just remembering this scene like where Ted like sends a text message and he says like, I thought I'd send you a little texty text, and then like the word texty text floats up and he tries to catch it. Like, that was like that. It's fine. The fun thing about it is like, because I'm going back and watching it now, and it really was like, I think we knew at the time, like as much as this show is like a dad 20 years from now telling his kids what it was like at that particular time to be that age and to be single or to be in a relationship in New York, like all of those things. I think we knew even at the time that we were making something that would be a document and that we would go back to and look and say like, wow, that's what it was like. And like now we're far enough away from it that there are things that like, and for better or for, I mean, there's some things that like, I wish weren't in there, but for the most part, like, it's a document of that particular time. And it's just funny, like I've been watching like the first season, and it's just like, oh man, Ted is so thirsty in that first season. He's so, oh my God. I'm like embarrassed for him. And then I'm kind of embarrassed for myself. Cause like a lot of those stories were my stories. Like he's kind of based on me a little bit. And like, it was like, it's just fun to watch. It's fun. Like, like seeing things now that I didn't see 15 years ago.
Sure. It's a fresh set of eyes. You literally have a different set of eyes than you did back then.
I'm closer to Bob Saget now.
You get to narrate this time. No, okay. So I have a ton of questions for How I Met Your Mother. Obviously, I'm gonna ask mine first. Sure. I have to know this. Did Marshall get mugged by a monkey? We never got a definitive.
Man, I you know what? Ask me again in like 10 years, and I gotta hang on. There's some mysteries we can't solve. You know,
Gotcha.
we did. You know, we gotta like. That was a fun one. That was.
All right.
That was, it's one of those like when we were coming to the end of the show, it did kind of feel like, God, are we really resolving all the mystery? Like we. Like ultimately didn't reveal the pineapple,
right.
Like where the pineapple came from for that reason. Kind of like we got to leave some things like just unknown.
Let me ask you, whether or not you revealed it, did you have, like, as you're writing the episode, in your mind, you're like, okay, this is the answer. We're not gonna show it. We're not gonna say it. But did you have a definitive answer in your mind?
For the monkey one, you know what? I was I'm trying to remember where the mugged by a monkey. I think it came from one of the writers. Like there was some news story about it because there were monkeys that like pickpocket monkeys like
yes.
in Asia, I believe.
Yeah.
But I think it was that one was kind of playing with the idea of and it was sort of one of our like more like sort of I think like cerebral episodes because it was kind of like. It was playing with the idea of like, is this a reliable narrator or not?
Right.
And does it matter? Like, is it, you know, if I remember correctly, that story ends with like, you know, someone making the case that like, you just have to like say it how it happened. You have to tell the truth. You can't embellish these for a good story. And then something crazy happens that like probably didn't happen in real life, but the narrator just willed it to happen. So
the monkey climbed the doll. It took the doll. He climbed the tower, the architecture tower.
Like all the elements of King Kong were there, and they just came together in this beautiful, like a prayer for Owen Meany kind of way. And and we like the idea of like, who knows? Who knows if that really happened or not? Or is this dad just telling this to these kids because why would you tell a story where nothing cool happens? You know, like tell a good story. You know.
Oh, I love it. And so you've mentioned, you know, in plenty of interviews as well as just now that this is kind of loosely based on you and Craig's life, and you know, Craig and his wife are the Marshall and Lily kind of similar, and you and Ted, and I'm just curious. For you, what is the one that like strikes the nerve? What's the truest where you're like, oh my God, I can't. That's me. You know what I mean? Like that part of that character.
I mean, you know, I feel like I can't even say it because I'll be like I don't. There's a few moments. I mean, well, okay, like I'll say it. It like the pilot episode, and I've struggled with this because like you know you have to. When we were first conceiving the show, Ted was me. Ted was he might as well have been called Carter, and like. First conceiving it was Carter and Craig, and it was like our lives and Rebecca, you know, and at a certain point you have to like a couple of things. You have to let the other writers in and let them help create the characters, and so it can't just be your life. It can't be, you know, obviously, and you have to let the actors bring stuff to it. Like they like, and that was the greatest joy that we had on the show was seeing the things that the actors brought and the things we could use in the writing that we drew from the actors. I mean, like, you know, Robin being Canadian was Kobe Smulders being Canadian, and you know, Barney doing magic was Neil Patrick Harris doing magic.
Right.
And Jason Segel would like sit and sing songs in between takes on the piano, and like that became like, oh, Marshall's the guy who sings everything. So you know, it was. Eventually, you know, you have to like leave the runway and let the character become the character and not have it just be completely based on you. But if in the pilot episode, that first episode, I mean, the thing that like I was at a time in my life when I had been dating for a while and I had kind of rolled snake eyes a few times in a row with girls and really like, you know, my parents had me when they got married right out of college and they had me when they were 26, I think. And I like, I started having these feelings that, there's no better way to describe it than like a biological clock. Like I kind of felt like I want to be a dad. I want to settle down. I don't want to just be like some single guy. Like this is around the time that like there was like the whole like pickup artist thing was going on, like especially in LA, and you'd go out to bars and there'd be like the guy with the big giant velvet hat and like the eyeliner,
the peacock, yeah,
and it was just like, oh god, and it was part of it was being in LA and missing New York, and a lot, and which is why I think we wrote a show about New York, because we had moved to LA from New York and just like wanted to be back, so we were like, let's just make a show where there's a New York bar as a set so we can pretend we're in New York for, a few hours every day. And, but yeah, I was like at a point where I just really wanted to I wanted to get married. I wanted to meet someone and settle down and get married. Someone that liked me as much as I liked them and vice versa. And I was really starting to examine why it hadn't happened for me and why, a lot of it was my own fault, and a lot of it was my own like immaturity and the wisdom I hadn't yet gained and mistakes I had made. And that like the pilot, there's that moment where Ted has told Robin that he loves her on the first date, which I never did. I don't think. I might have. I don't know. It's those files. No, I never did that. But then he leaves, and then he has this speech, and that speech was, it was the thing that got Josh Radnor the job, because he came and delivered that speech in the audition, and it was like, well, there's our Ted, we've got him, because he just like hit it out of the park. But it's the speech about where he says like, I wish I could skip the part where I have to go out and be cool and be a guy that and seduce people. I wish I could just be a happy, contented guy and already in a relationship and already with the person, because I think I'd be good at that. I think I'd be good at like just being a boyfriend and being a husband. I hate that you have to like go out and be cool in order to get to the end zone, which is not being cool, which is sitting on the couch on a Saturday night.
Being your true self.
Yeah. And that was like, and I think, I think especially, I think that's, especially at that time, I think maybe people changed a little bit, but at the time it was the kind of thing that like guys didn't say to other guys,
Sure.
But it was true. And it was something I really felt. So yeah, having Ted say those words out loud, felt like that was like the most vulnerable I've been in my writing, or I had been up until then. And I'm glad that we did it.
Yeah. I'll have you know that I remember seeing that scene. That was me. I was the kind of guy that could say, this is years ago, long time ago, I could say I love you the night I met someone, because I was, we call it hopeless romantic. Really, like you, I wanted to be a part of that. I didn't come from a good family, but I envied, the Cosby family. I envied the Seegers and all those TV families, and I wanted that. So when I saw Ted, I was just like, oh man, someone said it. Someone finally said it. So
and that's why I'm like, and that's why I'm enjoying watching it now, because it was also like that. Ted had to learn some stuff from that, because that's such a real vulnerable thing to feel, and yet there's so many flaws in it that you don't see in the moment. But over time, you realize like, oh, I'm like, I'm making this all about this like, I part of it is like, I'm setting these standards for myself, and part of it is this feeling of like, I love the. What was the line from Mad Men where someone says about like he loves the beginnings of things, and like that, I think that's a real thing that like, I love falling in love. I love that feeling of like things being and yet like I look back and it's like I broke up with some people, and like like it is like you have to like have the maturity to realize like I have to like, I don't know, you have to like work on yourself, and you have to get to a place where you're I don't know, kinder, more compassionate, more like, I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it. But what was fun about it was that I feel like Ted was like saying that, and I was feeling that, and then over the next 9 years, he and I both kind of learned it at our own paces, you know.
Sure.
And Josh too. Like, it's funny. Josh was saying, like, because he has said at various times that he always felt like he was like about 2 years ahead of Ted. Like, Ted is like learning stuff that he learned 2 years ago, right. And it's fun just like playing that and synthesizing that into these ridiculous stories about a guy dating in New York.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh man, and there's so much to unpack too. With this show, you guys, unlike any other show and I watch a lot of TV, I do, but unlike any other show, you know, with How I Met Your Mother, the setups, the running jokes, the connections, the little nods and things that are 3 episodes ahead or 4 episodes later that they connect the dots. I mean, you guys are crazy. First of all, you're out of your mind. How do you? I imagine, you know, the meme with the guy with the board with lines and.
I mean, it was literally that. It was literally. I mean, we didn't have the yarn. It wasn't full serial killer, but it was right. Like 90% that. I just love that. I mean, Craig and I both love that. There's another writer, Chris Harris, who we worked with, who was there for the whole time, and he was this great puzzle guy and this like math guy who just like loved these kind of challenges, like loved like saying like, oh, the story with the goat. Wait till you hear about the story of the goat. And then you have to come up with the story of the goat. And like, it has to be great and it has to be worth said, you know, like we just, we loved that stuff. We loved setting challenges for ourselves. And I think a big influence on it was Arrested Development. Arrested Development was a huge influence on that, for that kind of writing, because that was a show where they would set traps. They would set little traps, and then it would pay off 3 episodes later, and you're just like, it's perfect. And so it was definitely like we saw that and wanted to do that and wanted to like kind of ape that as well as we could. I'm trying to think. There are those setups that got paid off, you know, seasons later, but I'm sure it's one of those things like, oh, we can tie it back to that thing, and that's great. In your mind, what was the longest like payoff that was planned? That makes sense? Man, well, you know, it was the. I want to say like the slap bet. I think we knew slap bet that was season 2,
right?
And you know, you have 5 slaps for eternity. And we knew in that moment, like, oh, it's going to be, he's going to slap him in the series finale. Like we knew, like slap number 5 is going to be the series finale. Yeah, I mean, you know, the obviously the ending of the series too was something we planned way ahead, like purely out of like that wasn't even like out of this diabolical like yes it'll be, but it was literally like the kids were getting old and we were like, God, are we going to want to have the kids in this finale? We better like get them on tape now before. You know, he's got a beard and like it's, you know.
Which, by the way, you guys brought them back for that season 9 promo, which was hysterical.
Yeah, that was great.
Hysterical.
Really yeah.
I don't know how you guys got away with some crazy stuff for that one.
I remember shooting that thing and like, because they shot the scene from the finale, from the last scene of the series or whatever, and when we brought them back years later and they had grown up, like just as we had expected. Like I remember in between takes, like, you know, we're explaining it to them, and I think it was Lindsay. It was Lindsay and David, and David remembered, but Lindsay like had no idea. Like we had them sign these crazy NDAs, like don't tell a soul.
Right.
And she had just forgotten. She had forgotten. Like she like you know because we had them like they were shooting so much stuff, and like I think when you're an actor, you like you learn the stuff for that moment, and then you got to like push it out to put the next thing in. But we were so worried all that time, and like, and I think David sort of remembered like what happened, but like, yeah, we were. It was interesting.
That's crazy. You know, and actually, another question that just came to me too is, you know, you were talking about this kind of wistful thinking, and you know, you're writing this show. Early on, we know it's a 25-year story, right? From where it started to where he's telling his kids in the future, 2030, whatever it was. It's a 25-year story. I mean, and you said Ted was kind of you. You're writing in that moment. Do you think part of it was like that's the story you wanted? Like you're writing for your own. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
You wanted your own happy ending. You're like, I want to get to this ending, and I'm going to write a guy who's going to get there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, except that's not the ending that I would want for myself. So
well, no, right.
Like we have there's an alternate ending that we made that sort of is like Ted like living happily ever after with Tracy, which
no consequences.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I know, and a lot of people will say that there's a lot of feelings about how the ending was portrayed and this and that, and like I mean, it's your show. You ended how an asteroid could have destroyed the planet at the end, like, and that's your call.
Where were you 9 years ago?
but at the same time, like, speaking as a veteran, as a person in military service, things don't go to plan. Things don't always have a happy ending. Things can have a happy ending that have consequences. Things that can be complicated but work out. Like it's so complex. And I applaud the fact that you guys had the balls to make it ugly, make it not pretty.
You know what? Like, there's a lot of complicated opinions on the ending, and I hold some of them, and I'll just keep them to myself. But like, I definitely, what you're saying is true, and like, I definitely we definitely, whether we succeeded or not, we definitely did not want to make a finale that just. You love it and then you forget about it. Like we wanted to make something that swung for the fences. So I'll just
memorable one way or the other.
Yeah,
you always be remembered. Yeah, man. Oh my God. Okay, look, it is. We've had you now an hour, and I mean,
that was an hour. Oh my God.
That it's been an hour.
Right. Let's keep going. You don't have to, unless you got to.
Oh, not at all. I think the audience would love to keep you longer. So we'll ask a few more questions and we'll play it by ear.
Are there audience questions? Are there?
Absolutely. Oh my God! Don't poke that bear.
Yeah, I want to make sure I get to some of those.
Yeah. No. Okay. Well, here you go. We'll throw out some. Because obviously I know you have other projects that I wanted to promote and things. But here we'll get some audience questions. So first one. Sure. Swinging for the fences right out the gates. Why was the last season not focused more on Ted and Tracy's relationship, but instead focused on Barney and Robin's doomed relationship?
That's a totally reasonable question. Look, writing's hard. I mean, writing's hard, and you don't know what you're going to get. Like, if you put yourself in our shoes, like it's season 8, and you're like. So, I'll just to back up, like we didn't know if we were going to have a season 9 or not. So we were like halfway through season 8, we found out we were going to have a season 9. So halfway through season 8, we were planning to end season 8, and it was going to be like maybe you meet the mom, maybe you never meet the mom, and it's just about Ted and Robin. And then when we got that season 9, Craig and I went out to lunch, and we were like, God, do we have another year in this for it? Like he had already bought a place in New York, he was ready to move, and we had this lunch, and we just sort of said, like, if we come up with an idea for season 9 that gets us excited enough as writers, that's enough of a challenge, that challenges us and seems really hard and really complicated, and then if we can't think of that, we're not going to do it. We wanted something that like was like really shook things up.
Yeah.
And then we had this idea for. What if the whole, because, and we had like different timelines at work where I think we had sort of like called our shot already that like, oh, he's going to meet her at the end of this. Like we already like said it, like, I think they said the wedding's coming up and he's going to meet her at the wedding. The wedding's in 3 months. Like, how do we swing that? Do we do a season after they meet? Do we do, which we could have done, which, in hindsight we could have done. But the thing was we hadn't cast Tracy. Mm-hmm. And Kristen Milioti was not a name that we knew. And so at the time, it was like, what are the things we have that we're working with? We have 5 great actors. How do we keep them? How do we keep this story alive, but not, like we weren't sure we wanted to meet the mom because we weren't sure she was going to be great? You know, like what if she was terrible? And they're, you know, so that was the choice we made. The choice we made was like, and you know, like out of that problem, we thought like we'll get some crazy fun ideas will present themselves. And that was where the idea of like doing the whole season over the course of like this 48-hour thing came from. And like whether we succeeded or not, I that's not for me to judge, but I will say we set ourselves a really good challenge, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we took on the challenge of it, because like go to hell if you're gonna like write something that's not doesn't challenge you. Forget it. That's stupid. I'm not gonna. I have no patience for people who are like, why didn't you just give us the easy? And like, no, that's boring to me. I don't want to do that.
It's too easy. There's too many shows, and we're not naming names, but there's too many shows that take the easy way out. Let's all put a bow on it, wrap it up, and But I liked it.
I mean, if like we like, and I'm proud of how it came out. I think some of our best episodes came out of that season. Came out of like How Your Mother Met Me. I think is like a series high point. Like I think like, and there's episodes like Gary Blauman is one that I just look at where I just feel like at every moment it was just all cylinders firing. The rehearsal dinner I loved. I always thought like this is my thing about season 9. I felt like ultimately looking back, like if I could really like analyze it, I think we just had too many episodes to make. We had too many episodes to make. We were also like trying to develop the original How I Met Your Father. Mm-hmm. It should have been like half as long of it, like a 12 episode season. I feel like if you took out like the 10 worst episodes of that season, whatever you judge those episodes to be, that it's the best season we did on the show. That's what I contend. I say that not having watched it in 7 years. So.
No, not at all. I'm a guy who, so I have a sister-in-law who's younger and she's about to go into the Air Force, and she's a big Friends fan. And I would watch her watching Friends over and over. And I said, yeah, Friends is great. It's a great show. It's awesome. I was like, but How I Met Your Mother, come on. And she had never seen it. She was younger, never seen it. And I've sat her down. And so it's so funny that's the whole reason I reached out to you, is because we were sitting down watching it. I was like, yeah, I've met Carter Bays before. And I'm like, wait a minute, why haven't I asked Carter Bays to be on the show? But you know, and I'm getting to sit down and not just rewatch it and enjoy it for myself, but to see it through those eyes of someone who's never seen it. And they're like, oh my God, what is this? What does that mean? And what does this mean? And I get excited because I'm like, oh, I know that. I know this. I know that. But it's so great to share that. Another question from the audience. Okay, well, this one says, please let him know his show is adored here in India and that he's got super fans over here.
Oh, that's so lovely.
The show is tracking in India. I know there's I even had a Facebook group reach out to me called How I Met Your Mother Philippines. So they're digging it, man.
Man, that just knocks me out every time I hear something like that, because it really is like that. I mean, it's corny, but I think this is the stuff that connects us. And like we set out to make a show like that wasn't like that you don't have to get every pop culture reference like to understand it. Like we just set out to make a show that's just like, what are just the baseline human experiences that we can all relate to, and like that tells me that we did our job.
It's universal. It's absolutely so universal. All right, Diego says Marshall became a lawyer at Columbia College. What was he studying at Wesleyan?
Wow, I don't know if I know. I'm sure that there is an answer. I would have known this, right? Like back, like season 9, when my brain was just like I hadn't lived a life for 9 years, and I had only lived these characters' lives, and I knew everything about them. And then I'm sure
it's on some wiki somewhere, some fan wiki.
Like, what did he officially major in? I don't know, but like he was mainly reading books about the Loch Ness Monster and Sasquatch. I think that was it. Sandwich making.
Point out, my wife is actually in the chats, and she'll hate me for not mentioning this, but we were such big fans of the show. We caught it late. Like we didn't get on board until season 2 or 3. Watched it live throughout the rest. Have watched it many times. When she was pregnant, as crazy cravens go, one of her things was she loved watching How I Met Your Mother. That was just her go-to. And it's so funny that even after our son was born, we would watch it, And like he was kind of a fussy baby, but for some reason, when we watched the show, he would calm down. True story. True story.
Wow. I hope he didn't learn any language.
But now it's so funny that he's 4 and we're watching it now. And the theme song comes on wherever he is in the house. He'll run to the TV and do the ba 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 ba, and he'll do it with us. So it's such a family thing. So it really is. It's an awesome show that has brought our family together. So thank you personally for me.
Thank you. We always wanted it to be a show that like you can watch when you're sick. Like we wanted to be that kind of show that like is just like comforting when you need something.
Let's see. It's sad. It's sad that we don't get to see some of the important things like Ted's bachelorette party. I think they meant bachelor party. Ever learn Carl's last name or the name of the third child of Marshall and Lily?
The third. Wait, do we not learn the third child? I guess we don't. Do we? Carl's last name. I don't have an answer for any of those, unfortunately. But I will say Carl is named after Craig and I, our assistant. When we were developing the show, we had this assistant whose name was and still is Carl McLaren. And Carl and we named the bar after Carl McLaren. And Carl, fun story about Carl. Joe Nieves was originally cast to play a cop. Because we had this whole, I don't know if you remember the pilot, there's a whole thing about Marshall like scared to open a bottle of champagne. And Marshall has like fear issues that he needs to get over. And we wrote this whole scene that involved Marshall like finally like finding his confidence. And it ends with him like yelling at a cop and getting arrested, basically. Like that was going to happen. And then we realized, like, and that was the story like late in the game. Up until like right before we started shooting, and then the night before we shot, we realized like this pilot is going to be an hour and a half long. Like this isn't going to work. We have to cut something out. So we cut that scene, and then the next day, we are on the set to start shooting the first scenes from the pilot. And we're very nervous, and there's this cop walking around, and we're like, "Why is there a cop here? Like, what is going on? Are we going to get arrested or something? What happened here?" And what we find out is that it's Joe Nieves. And someone had made a mistake and forgot to call him to tell him that the scene was cut. So he came in, got into his wardrobe, and was like hanging out on set. And we realized like, oh my God, this guy is here. It's 6 a.m. He's probably excited because he booked a pilot. And now like we have to like be here and witness him being told like, oh, sorry, it's your scene's cut and he's got to go home. And like, I don't know, it just felt like a moment that was not like, it felt like we can't start the show on this moment of like a guy's day being ruined, and he probably told his friends like, hey, I'm going to be on this thing. So Rob Greenberg, who was our producer at the time, who's a great writer also and helped us out, I think he had the idea of let's make him the bartender. Let's write a line, like one line, and I think that line was "You should have kissed her," and then I think we added a few other lines after that. But like at the very end when everyone's telling Ted he should have kissed her, and then Carl says he should have kissed her. So we wrote him that line just so like we could tell him like, hey, guess what? You're not going to be playing the cop, but you're going to be the bartender. And I mean, cut to 9 years later, he's still on the, like we would have never seen him again if he had been the cop in that scene.
That's right. And
instead he got a 9-year gig out of it. So I was very happy with that turnout. And he's a lovely, lovely guy. And he was just comedy gold every time we went to him.
There you go. Yeah. For all intents and purposes, his last name is the bartender. Carl, the bartender. Carl bartender. Let's see. So, okay, this is a question, I guess, about the upcoming show. I heard that that's what they're saying. I heard that in How I Met Your Father, the main character, who I know they're calling her Sophie, right? That's correct?
I believe I can reveal that. Yes, I think
it was in the papers. It's fine. But Sophie, there's a theory here that says it's the third child, Marshall and Lily's third child, grown up and telling the story of how she met the father. I'm sure that's something you couldn't reveal even if it was true. But there you go.
I can't reveal it. I can't. There's so much stuff I want to reveal, but I can't. Can't.
Of course. I'm only asking what they say. But speaking of that, though, something I'm sure you could talk to is being a Star Wars fan the way you are.
Yes.
You know, there's a very thin tightrope you have to walk when doing something like a sequel. How much homage do you pay to what's the original, and how much do you create that's new and fresh? How do you feel that? How are you guys going to navigate that?
Because it really is like, when I think about it, it's like, I hadn't even put two and two together on this, but I think you've hit the nail on the head, because this show, and I don't want to give away any story stuff or any plot, but like, there are things about it that it is kind of like the way The Force Awakens, and whatever your feelings about The Force Awakens, and I know that like that I don't even get into like Star Wars, but there was a feeling of, I remember when that came out, feeling like, holy shit, Star Wars is back. And what was fun about it was that it remixed things that you loved already in Star Wars, but had enough new stuff, had like, Finn, like I thought, like, and I will get into it a little bit. They should have done more with Finn. Finn should have been the main character of the whole trilogy. It should have focused on that. That was the most interesting storyline. But Finn, like you have like the stormtrooper who changed sides. Like that's really cool. But like it still had like enough of the bedrock stuff, like BB-8 was the R2-D2 of the piece, and but like a cool new version. That's what How I Met Your Father is kind of, and I feel like that's a good, and either that'll strike terror in people's hearts, or they'll be excited about it. But that is like, you want it to have all the archetypes, and all the sort of the general story moves, but like still like be specific and new and fresh, and I think it is all of those things. I mean that's why it blew us away when we read the script, because it really felt like they really threaded that needle of like capturing what was there already, but then adding all this new stuff to it. So
now I do have I know the answer to this one, but I'll let you answer it. They say Marshall and Lily always made bets on everyone's life. The last scene shot should have been Lily finally paying up to Marshall, but I know there's a deleted scene for that, but I'll let you.
Yeah. Oh, there was a deleted scene. It was and it was it's funny, my memory of that scene, because when we were shooting it, there was the feeling that like, oh, this is gonna be the last scene of the entire series, and my memory of that scene was like, wait, it was Lily paying Marshall? Was that what it was?
Right. Because she had bet they wouldn't end up together, and Marshall was always the holdout, going, give it time.
Marshall thought they would end up together, right? Was that what it was?
Robin and Ted, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think it was that like the phone rings, like Ted goes and holds up the blue French horn, and they get back together, and their phone rings, and Lily's like, She hangs up. She says, "Pay up," and he's like, no, sorry, Marshall does that. Marshall says, "Pay up," and she gives it. And I remember when we were shooting it, there was this cute thing that they were doing where each one of them wanted to have the last line of the series. So it's like, "Pay up." All right, you win. That's right, I do win. I'll get you next time. No, you won't. Yes, I will. Like they just kind of kept going. Like nobody wanted. It was like,
this is it.
Like fade out on both of them talking at the same time. Neither of them would yield the floor.
That's awesome. So there you go. There's the answer for that one. Yeah. Another one saying that the sequel should be Barney's daughter grown up telling. That's it. Any girl that's ever been on the show, that's who it should be. There you go. We'll skip all that. Although I will say, one of the most impactful scenes I never forget in that show is when Barney's holding his baby girl and he does his speech, and man, that was incredible.
Monologue to babies. That's our old writer's trick. A guy giving a monologue to a baby, home run every time. Always does. For some reason, I don't know what it is. The vulnerability, that was like, what was fun about this show is like you could just synthesize every feeling and experience you had in your life, and like I have always rolled my eyes at the whole like girl dad thing and the whole like, well, as a father of daughters, I feel, this whole thing of like, I didn't feel this way until I had a daughter of my own and da 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 da. All that's nonsense. And you should have a moral compass before you become a parent. All that being said, it really like it changes you when you have a kid. There's just something like very beautiful about it and very like it really does realign a lot of things that you didn't even know needed realigning, and that's how I felt when my daughter was born. And so
that's
as
awesome.
a father of daughters, that's what I have to say.
Yeah.
So.
Now, and two, this is a show built on Easter eggs and nods and all these little references and things. Is there anything that you kind of maybe put in there just for yourself, not necessarily a nod to, other shows, but anything you can share?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's full of stuff like that. It's full of like, I often looked at it as like a time capsule that I just wanted to like everything that I care about at this point in my life. I want to do a reference to every movie that I love. I want to get a song by every band that I love. Like I had a Replacement song in there. I was so proud of getting them in there. Guided by Voices. Like every band that I liked, like I made sure to like get at least one song by that band. Like it really felt like it was like this kind of Noah's Ark of all of my accumulated pop culture things that I loved, and I wanted to like sort of like get them all like there. And it went very like there was a show that I loved on. Like from the 80s, a mini series called Wild Palms, which is like this weird, trippy show about virtual reality, and it was set in like the not too distant future. And there's one episode of the show that's full of references to Wild Palms that I don't know if anyone's ever like picked up on this or paid attention to it, but it was an episode called Everything Must Go, which is I think an episode of that show is called Everything Must Go, and it's sort of like a running line that you hear over and over in the show. But yeah, there's like 6 references to Wild Palms in that episode, and we were constantly doing stuff like that, just things that we love, things that we care about. We'd stick them in the show so that they're there forever.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And speaking of things that were in there that are important to you, you and Craig got to play fake paramedics. What was it like being in front of the camera for that one?
It was. So I came from Letterman, and at Letterman, you do your skits, and you get like the stagehands to do the skits, and that was the joke of the show. Was always like, this guy's a carpenter in real life. He's not an actor, but we have him come out and deliver a monologue. Which was all very fun, but I think it was somewhat poisonous for writers who want to go on to like work with actors, because it makes you think that you inevitably develop this attitude that actors are props, and like the writing is what's funny. The writing is the comedy, right. And then the actors, their job is just to say the word.
They're puppets.
I don't really feel that way. I don't think I ever really felt that way, but like there's like a little thread of that like, if they don't act well, it'll still be funny because the jokes are funny, which is just so fundamentally wrong. And I so like regret ever feeling that way. And I say all this because that was the moment that I realized what a incredible art form acting is, when I had to actually act for 3 seconds without even having a line. But like I had to like you don't realize how hard it is just to not look at any of the cameras, because there's 4 cameras. Everywhere you look, there's a lens. And if you look at any of those, then you're looking at the audience. So like if you see me in that, I'm like looking down the whole time, because like I know if I look up, I'm gonna buzz one of the lenses. And like I just like walked away from that like in a cold sweat, and like I just feel like I gave Josh Radnor a hug and was like, I appreciate you. I appreciate it. That's where you realize like, oh, we're just mission control, and these guys are the astronauts. These guys are up there flying the space shuttle, and like we're just like, we can write them a good script, but they're the ones that go up and do it, and my hat's off to them.
I love that. Yeah. They're the ones risking their lives out there. They're putting their necks on the line.
Their necks on the line.
There you go. Yeah. And speaking of kind of cameo appearances, you guys had a ton of celebrities and cameos and people I think one that a lot of people don't realize, because, you know, you had Britney Spears, you had Katy Perry, you had all these huge names.
All my heroes. Katy Perry, Britney Spears, Kim Kardashian.
Everybody.
Yeah.
But then there's a scene where you have Conan O'Brien in the background. And it's never referenced, never mentioned.
That was this great, like, one of the actors, I can't even remember which actor it was, but somebody was like involved with some sort of like charity auction at some event, and we auctioned off we did this frequently just to like raise money for charities. Like we would like auction off like, hey, come be an extra on the show. Yeah. And you know, people would bid on it, and like, you know, it would usually raise a good amount of money. And at this particular party, Conan O'Brien was there, and I don't know, maybe he had a few too many to drink or something, but he started bidding on it and he won. And but then it was so much fun. I mean, first of all, we got to like go and like meet with him, and like, which for Craig and I, like, he's like beyond talented and funny, and he's every bit as funny in person as he is on his show, and like that was such a treat. But I just also loved the way, like, the conditions of it were like, I don't want a line. I don't want to be like referred to in any way. Mm-hmm. I want this to be something that like people like are, you know, eating their SpaghettiOs while they're watching, and they like stop. Wait, was that? No, that could be, you know, like, and like it was, and I remember being in the edit room, and it was like, I remember it was like Captain Kirk and Scotty, like me telling the editor, Sue Fetterman, who won a bunch of Emmys and is like the greatest editor of comedy, but even she was like, well, we have to like see him on screen a little bit. And I kept saying like, cut even more, cut 10 more frames, 10 more frames, 10. And she was like, I can't cut any more, Captain. But by the end, like it really was just like, you just walk by there he is, he's gone. And I was very pleased with that. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah. I mean, he bid on the background extra experience and he got it. Like that's.
And we treated him like a background extra. It was not highlighted in any way. He was just there, and then he's gone.
Oh man, that's so funny. We'll give you a couple more questions. I don't want to hold you too late.
Sure.
So everyone gets a musical number in this series except Lily. Why?
Oh, that's not by accident. And believe me, if Allie had come to us and said, guys, I gotta sing, like we would have happily written it, but she is not. She has so many talents, and she's such a skilled comedian, but she's not a singer, and she's the first to admit it. And I just saw this episode. There's a moment in, I think like is it like the first season or the second season, where like Marshall and Lily they have like their duet in karaoke,
right? Yep.
And they're singing "Don't Go Breaking My Heart,"
mm-hmm.
and I remember at the time, like, working with Allison to figure out a way to do this, because she was like, guys, I cannot sing. I'm not going to try to sing. It's going to, people will turn off their television sets. So we did the thing where, like, Jason sings, "Don't Go Breaking My Heart," and she's, like, making her way up to the stage and gets to it just to be able to say, "Tried." And that was all the singing she did on the whole show. And yeah, it was, yeah. So we would have loved to have her sing, but she would be the first to tell you that that's not her bag. So
right. So I know that
light face.
You look fine. Josh, I read that Josh kept the blue French horn, and Kobe kept like the Robin Sparkles jacket. Mm-hmm. I'm curious. Did you snake anything from the set? Did you?
Oh God, it was a fantastic scramble, and it's funny. Like, without revealing too much, there's like, you know, as we talk about this new one, it's like, are there things that I can donate back to that might be needed? Because I snatched up. I got some good stuff. I got a booth from McLaren's, wow, which my kids now like do their coloring at this booth. So it's like it's just the booth around. I'm excited for them to actually see the show, so I can say like, that's your booth, like that right there. I have I've got the swords. I've got a can of Tantrum, a half crushed can of Tantrum.
Nice.
I've got I've got one of the umbrellas. There's like 3 umbrellas. I think me, Craig, and Pam got the 3 umbrellas. And yeah, there's every now and then I'll find some other thing like, oh yeah, I guess I stole that from the set.
Hey.
They're really a mad scramble, like everybody.
I mean, these are things that should be in a museum, to be studied and worshipped.
Barfing on them and stuff.
All right, last one, because I know How I Met Your Mother 2 wasn't necessarily, a superhero genre or sci-fi in the sense. You guys never really did Comic-Cons right up until the last season. You made an appearance at San Diego Comic-Con. I'm curious, as a guy who was into sci-fi and things, what was that experience like, getting to bring your show there and experience in person?
It was one of the best weekends of my life. It was so much fun. It was just terrific because at that moment, we'd been pushing for Comic-Con appearances and like other shows like in the 20th Century Fox family had done Comic-Con things. Like I think like My Name is Earl did that, and we kept pushing and we kept hearing back like, you guys aren't really a comic book kind of show. Like I guess My Name is Earl had like comic book stuff to it. It had sort of a comic vibe, and they had like a big fan base in that world. But I think it was sort of a matter of like, because we talked about sci-fi and like they're Star Wars nerds on the show, but like it wasn't a sci-fi show and it didn't quite fit their criteria. But I think as the show went on, Comic-Con changed, and Comic-Con became a little more like inclusive to things that were outside of the specific narrow
mainstream, so to speak.
Yeah, like mainstream stuff, and it was just it was fantastic, and we like it was just like in that sweet spot when like it was like we filled up the main room, like the big room,
Hall H, yeah,
the Hall H, yes, that's right, and it was just the cheers when the cast walked out was just so like gratifying, and I was so excited for them, like that they had like come this far, and like it was a real high water mark for the show.
Absolutely.
Or for our experience making the show, I think.
Yeah. It's a shame that you guys didn't get to do it more because of, there's such a passionate fan base for the show. Okay. I want to wrap us up because, you got kids, I got kids, we got kids. I want to give you a minute to promote because I know you have an upcoming book. I know that we talked about, Molly and the Moon, and I also read that there's a comedy show about a Italian Puerto Rican family too. I don't know if you're ready to.
Oh my God, that's a few years old. That unfortunately did not.
That didn't make it. Oh man, I got excited.
It was Chris DiStefano and Diane Guerrero, and it was just such a fun show and a fun bunch and Chaz Palminteri and Annie Potts and we just had so much fun with it, but it didn't get picked up, unfortunately.
I saw that one last minute as I was doing some digging. I was like, oh my God, I'm excited. This is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one.
I'm Italian and Puerto Rican, so I got.
Yeah, that's your. Yeah.
I had a personal stake in the matter, but it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. But go ahead, talk about your book. Let people know where they can find it, what it's about, all the stuff.
It's coming out in summer of 2022, next summer, like a year from now-ish. And I'm just tremendously excited about it. It's called The Mutual Friend. It's a big book. It's long. I don't know. This is the first time I've had to promote it anywhere, so I don't know how I'm doing here. I don't know if that's a good sale. You get a lot of book for your dollar. So that's,
can I take a stab at it? Because I want to help you here.
Sure.
It's centered on an ensemble of 20-something New Yorkers over the course of one summer as they navigate love, loss, ambition, and faith. It's about an aspiring Dr. Alice who must face a list of potential suitors vying for her attention, including, and I won't go into the whole pitch about it, but people should check it out. Absolutely.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, it's if you like How I Met Your Mother, it's definitely like, I've been working on it off and on for a long time, and just in the last few years I really started diving in on it. But it's something that sort of like continuing that part of my brain from working on How I Met Your Mother, and sort of, so it's got all the like setups and payoffs and all that stuff is all in there, and it's just a fun book to read on the beach. I promise it's a good time, lots of laughs, and it's a cute little story.
I can't wait. Can't wait to get my hands on it, and hopefully we'll get you back. You know, when it's time to talk about it and promote it and do the thing. And
great, I'd love to.
It'd be fantastic. All right, the last thing I always like to say is, you know, let the people know where you at on social media. Where can they follow you? How can they be involved with what you're doing?
Sure. Okay, yeah. Well, I'm on I'm Carter Bays at Carter Bays on Twitter. And I'm at Carter L. Bays on Instagram. Yeah, I don't know if I can plug anything, I want to plug ASAP, because I just to talk about it for 2 seconds, like, sure. Which is sort of how we know each other. It's this wonderful program, the Armed Services Arts Partnership, and they are, I think it's at ASAP Vets. Oh God, I hope I got that right. I think that's their Twitter handle, yeah. But look them up. They're fantastic, especially if there's any people in the military listening. It's just this great organization that I work with. I've been working with for a few years. That helps veterans returning to coming home and teaching them the skills of stand-up comedy and comedy writing. And it's something that I've loved doing, and I try to teach a workshop every year, and so I urge everyone to check them out, because they're
It's a phenomenal organization. I didn't even touch on it because we have I've had Sam on before, and we've talked about it before, so I didn't want to fill it up. But I will say, because of them, we got to be in a room. Last thing we'll say, we got to be in a room, and we wrote a make-believe episode of How I Met Your Mother called Doc Block, which was, I honest can say this, one of the highlights of my life was that experience.
It was one of the highlights of my life, and I'm going to tell you, I took the train home thinking and I probably shouldn't even say this to get anyone's hopes up, but I had this feeling of if we were ever going to do a How I Met Your Mother reunion, this is how we'd do it, and it would be with this script, because it was a genuinely funny story, and it was all about the gang, because it was military themed, so it was the gang during Fleet Week. Yep. And all the hijinks that they get into during Fleet Week. And everyone had a great story, and the whole class, everyone brought so much great material to it, and I was just knocked out by the talent in that room. It was it was a lot of fun. We broke the story, had the whole outline. I've still got it somewhere. Maybe we should do it.
I have pictures if you want. We can link it, because all I remember is we were talking about how does the 3 arc structure work, and then next thing you know, we start pitching ideas, and you're writing feverishly on the wall with the marker.
And that was discovering this muscle memory. It's like riding a bicycle that I hadn't ridden a bicycle in so long. It was oh yeah, I remember how to do this. You draw 2 lines, and you do act 1, act 2, act 3, and yeah, it was great fun. I should if you have pictures of that, feel free to post them. I feel I want to post the outline or the
well,
see what it was.
Who knows? Maybe How I Met Your Father needs a Fleet Week episode. I don't know.
No, they're still doing that, I think. I don't know if there's still Fleet Week. If there is, then
yeah, there's something. But anyway, I've got that now forever recorded on film that me and Carter worked together. No one can take that away from me. Carter Bays, this has been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone is going nuts in the chats, and they're so happy you're here. We hope to have you back in the future for another episode. Anytime you want to come back, man, you are forever a friend of the show.
I'd love to. This is great fun. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Guys, we're going to take a short break. I'm going to go say goodbye to Carter, and we'll be back in a few minutes. All right, shots.